Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Georgia Wrestling Spotlight, the weekly feature here on the Tapped Out Podcast Network, where we are looking back and looking ahead to the week that was and will be in Georgia indie wrestling, kind of recapping all of the shows that happened, kind of the highlights of what happened at each show, and kind of promoting out and saying, hey, if you're around and about in Georgia and you're looking for a place to go, this is kind of the show you want to get, because we got the Indy Rewind where we look back, the Making the Drive segment where we look ahead, and then we even have a little bit of a peek where we say, hey, who won the week? But before we get started, we want to say, hey, thank you to all the people watching over on our YouTube channel. Make sure you're subscribing to the page, liking all the videos, and of course, turning that little bell, cling, like you see there on the graphic, where you don't miss a single episode, because that way you'll get notified every time we put a new product. Like last week when we did the QT Marshall interview, it was a little bit of an extra thing. So that's why you want to have that little bell notification turned on, because you don't want to miss anything we do extra, specifically something like, with a nationally, known personality like QT Marshall. But look, it's not just about YouTube as well. We've also got our home over on patreon.com/tappedoutpod. And why would you want to sign up over there? Well, hey, look, it's just like YouTube. You can do a free membership and you can get all of the stuff that we put out. But you get some little perks if you sign up for that $1 level. You get the show notes. Like, for example, today's episode of The Spotlight is 13 pages of notes when you were talking about that. And you kind of can give you a little more detailed breakdown of what happened at every single show and a look ahead of what's going to happen at some of the shows that we just don't have the time to get to. The $5 level, you get all of the weekly content early. That's a huge one as well. And then at the $10 level and the $25 level specifically, at the $10 level, you get anything we do early. Like I said, like the QT Marshall episode, that one you would have had to been at the $10 level to get it early. Otherwise, it would have dropped at the regular slot. But at the 10 and 25, we have the Tapped Out Collectibles division that monthly, where we're putting out a very exclusive. It's only limited to the people that, if you're at a $10 level, you get a digital copy of it. And at the $25 level, you actually get a physical 8.5 by 11 signed by the talent that is featured on that month's Tapped Out Collectibles Patreon exclusive comic design cover. Last month was Sunny Days. He was one of the first people to actually be in the AEW Double or Nothing, one of their first pay-per-views. And he is a star here in Georgia as well as a wrestler, booker, and all the above. So again, make sure you're checking us out over at patreon.com/tappedoutpod. Well, man, without further ado, let's dive right into this week's Georgia Indie Rewind, where we kind of said, like, we look back at the week of, hey, what happened this past week in Georgia? And listen, let's just dive into arguably the biggest event potentially that happened in the state of Georgia and may happen all year. When people start talking about what's show of the year and all of those conversations and that stuff, I think the One Fall Wrestling show in Atlanta at Center Stage Theater, called SummerStage specifically. Now, we'll kind of give you the disclaimer here a little bit. We're not going to go as deep into this show, only because on the Tapped In Indie show, I'll be joined by Jack Jameson. And he obviously, one of the reasons we had him on there is we wanted to kind of go peel a lot of the layers of the onion off of this show, because he was part of the show, can kind of give a perspective that even we were there, and we backstage, we got to go backstage, we got to meet a bunch of people. There's a whole lot of stories to tell about this one, and I'm sure we'll look, one of the stories will come up on the Tapped Out episode this week because of something that kind of Myron and I got to do and be a part of, which is I'm sure that story will definitely come out. But look, just kind of going through the card a little bit. Jay Lethal defeated Adam Priest. I mean, everything you thought this match was going to be. Two pros. Adam Priest absolutely proved he belongs on the big stage when he goes in there and hangs with a guy like Jay Lethal. Aaron Solo, he is the big-time wrestling champion, and he actually brought that title in from the West Coast. And he ended up picking up a big win over Carly Bravo. That's right, Atlanta, Georgia's own Carly Bravo on a big stage there as well. But look, that's nothing surprising to him. He's obviously Ring of Honor, AEW as well. Against Michael Allen Richard Clark, who is up from the Maple Leaf promotion, Scott D'Amore's promotion. So he came down, and it kind of put this triple threat together in what was a very, very good match, as you could probably imagine. three pros in there as well. And listen, that's going to be a developing thing that you're going to hear probably across this episode is pros pro. I mean, stacked from top to bottom with a lot of professional wrestlers, if you know what I'm saying. QT Marshall, Billy Gunn, and Austin Gunn had a surprised partner. Colton Gunn of the Gun Club obviously has been injured. He had a knee issue. And look, they always tell you if you have to substitute, always try to up the game so people don't get left disappointed. And boy, did they ever when they delivered Brody King. The place went bananas when he came out as their surprise fourth partner. And they picked up a big win over the frat house, Garrison Carter, Vance, and, of course, Jack Jameson, which is, again, I'm sure we're going to hear a little bit about that on the Tapped In show as well. Really good match. I mean, it was the epitome and to me, I always said, like, this was a TV match. If you know what that means, that's just kind of my take. It was very much a TV match, and that's not in a disrespectful way. It was super entertaining. They gave you what you wanted after the match. Obviously is what it is. What quietly could have been argued to have been probably one of the show stealer of the match of the night. Sid Ellington defeated Karen Gray in a casket match, coffin match. It's coffin match, I believe is the way the term was. It just was so different than everything else on the card, specifically, up to that point on the card. But even across the whole night, it was just something so different. It was so serious, so intense, so brutal that those guys went out there. I mean, and just Sid had marks all over his back after this match, and Kieran Gray as well. They both put each other to the ringer. And these guys have had a history, like a long, long history. I mean, these guys used to be partners, roommates, like the whole this thing was super personal. And to cap, this match off, one of the largest surprises of the evening, there's a history there with them. Darby Allin shows up because he has history with those guys as well. He was kind of the part of their original upbringing into pro wrestling and training. So for him to just show up, I mean, the crowd went bananas. I mean, just absolutely bananas. So Sid Ellington obviously picking up a big win over Kieran Gray. Curious to see what kind of transpires now moving forward. Vari Morales won the Casino Gauntlet match, and it was crowned the first ever one fall breakout champion. No surprise if you're a big fan, of our show, that we're massive fans of Vari Morales, and hopefully this is a title that'll draw more attention to Vari Morales. We think the world of him. We think he could be it. Look, when that tournament was going on, he was one of my guys that I thought could have been the actual one fall, champion for that matter. So Vari Morales, breakout champion. We'll see what that means as far as, I think more promoters out there probably are going to probably have to pay attention to one of if not so underrated, in the state of Georgia that we've named the award after him on the Tapped In podcast. Isis Reed defeated Robin Renegade, Angelica Risk, and Hyena Hair to be crowned the one fall women's champion. And listen, with all due respect, and she knows we love her to death. She had to have been considered probably the underdog going into this show. And absolutely, look, when I had the conversation with QT, I kind of implied that, and he kind of pushed back and was like, no, man, I just don't think people know, like, it's going to be like a potentially breakout moment for her. And it delivered, and it was. Going in there with literally, arguably, three of the best wrestlers in the state of Georgia, Robin Renegade, Angelica Risk, and Hyena Hera. Those three are ones that when you're talking about the best women wrestlers in Georgia, clearly they're at the top of the top. And then for Isis Reed to walk out of there as your champion says a ton about where they see her and what they see in her future. So congratulations to Isis Reed. And just, again, probably more on the Tapped In show about that. There was a pre-show battle royal that was won by Nasty Leroy. Shout out to the Nasty Man. Look, big thing. Bryce Cannon had a great showing. Lots of other people in that match, in the battle royal. There was another 6-man that was really, really good. That had, the likes of KJ Impala, Michael Solar, and some others. But yeah, absolutely. It was cool to see a lot of these young talents get an opportunity to work the center stage. That's just kind of my big impression of it. But of course, the main event, Brady Booker and Elijah Drago in a steel cage, Brady's been chasing this title for a while, months, to be honest with you, and they did a phenomenal job of hyping this and building to this moment, and it felt very old school on a lot of levels. But congratulations to Brady Booker for picking up a really big win and becoming the new one-fall heavyweight champion. So kind of eager to see where things play out now. But congrats to, look, overall, one fall, 559 people at the Center Stage Theater to see SummerStage. Enough positive things cannot be said about this show. And like I said, if you really want some more meat on the bone, check us over out on the Tapped In show, where Jack Jameson and I will 100% go through this even more in detail about kind of what's going on. But look, things pick up steam. I don't know that you'll ever, where this show will be seen, time will tell. I've heard a couple conversations that I'm not going to get into right now about where this show may end up. So I'm going to let that stuff all be announced on social media. So give 1FW a follow on all their social media platforms. And then, of course, this Friday, August the 1st, they will be at Watkinsville for the first show post SummerStage. Also on Friday, Action Wrestling ran in Fayetteville, Georgia. Huge showdown there. Highlights of that show was Tim Bosby defeated Landon Hale and is still the Action World Heavyweight Champion. That's a massive win for one Tim Bosby. Let's be clear. When Tim Bosby when he won that Action Championship, there were a lot of questions, right? Like he came out of nowhere, but just clearly now here over the months that he has been the champion, he has beaten some, a pretty solid list of who's who, especially in Georgia wrestling. But Landon Hale kind of has to be one of the, that is a crown jewel, a win for Tim Bosby, because Landon Hale is a nationally recognized, talent across all of the indie scene all over the country. So that's a massive win for him, in my opinion. Krule had a big win over Moses. The IWTV World Tag Team Champions 4825 Jaden Newman and Jamison Shook picked up a big win over the Ugly Sucklings, White Mike and Rob Killjoy. Probably, arguably, one of the most unique tag teams around. I'm a massive, massive fan of the Ugly Sucklings. Bobby Flacco picked up a win over Joey Hyder. And an interesting, Darian Bingston, he picked up a win over a debuting Stunt Marshall. Big win. Stunt Marshall's got a lot of momentum coming out of the power slap stuff that went down, where he kind of caught fire and became kind of a viral sensation. But Darian Bingston, very interesting that, he went from a guy that, I think he was really underrated and has kind of slowly climbed. It feels very familiar. It's something Action does very well, by the way. You will see a guy pick up momentum with the fans and just watch them climb the ladder and become a guy and get an opportunity. And Darian Bingston literally post-match after the main, Darian Bingston challenges Tim Bosby, and CEO Matt Griffin makes the match official. They will wrestle at September 19th show. And Darian Bingston, it's a great opportunity for this young man, because when you make the case for somebody like that, it's like, hey, we didn't see Tim Bosby coming either. It could happen for Darian Bingston. So make sure when that show's coming, make sure you have your tickets, because you might miss out, because a lot of people didn't see the Tim Bosby thing coming. Let's don't miss the train on Darian Bingston as well. It's really cool that they were back there. It had been 6 months, I believe, since they were at the Bus Barn. So really cool to see them back at one of their old stomping grounds. It's a super hot venue, and I mean that it's a very hot, not like temperature hot, but a hot venue. So check out all of their shows on IWTV, and their next show, I believe, is in Tyrone, August the 22nd. Also on Friday, let's keep it going. We're going to head down from the south side all the way up to the northeast corner in Royston, Georgia, where Apocalypse Pro Wrestling, the artist formerly known as Squared Circle Action, soon to potentially be renamed Squared Circle Action, as we head into this Friday. Everything kind of led up to what is going to be the big Apocalypse Asylum match this coming up Friday. Lots of little pieces kind of shuffled out this week. Tower picked up a win over Jaden Vane by DQ. The Savage defeated Cliffhanger Chris. James Boulevard and Ballenger defeated Tyler Veach and Brandon Cage. The Blue Ninja and Ashton Martin picked up a win over Greatness Incorporated in a title match. But, of course, the big news coming out of this specific show this past weekend, Scott Mason, Luke Da Silva, and Jaden Vane defeated Jacob Ashworth and Tower in a handicap match to get the man advantage for the Apocalypse Asylum match this Friday. And as it seems to have been, this story progresses week after week after week. Squared Circle Action finds themselves at a disadvantage. They find themselves in a situation that they're kind of fighting uphill to try to get this company back for Jonathan Feltner. But that's kind of how it goes. And it seems, and that's when, when these groups get into power, it just kind of seems the way that it happens to fall. But like I said, that big Apocalypse Asylum match finally happens this week. So it'll be Team APW versus Team SCA. Winners obviously will, get control, and that's essentially the future in my, of SCA/APW. When we walk out of Friday's show, you'll know, is it still Apocalypse Pro Wrestling, or is it back to Squared Circle Action with Jonathan Feltner at the helm? I know that's what the fans there want. Let's see if the team can make it happen. And before you head up there, if you did miss this show, make sure you're checking it out. Check it out on YouTube and get caught up to speed to see kind of how everything's set up to this Friday. As I said, the big show this Friday as on the 1st. That's the big Apocalypse Asylum match, and that's where everything will play out over the next. Let's get back on the road and let's drive down the road to Franklin, Georgia, where New Legacy Pro Wrestling had a huge show, and a couple guys really, really stood out. Frankie Valentine defeated Austin Thorne. The Wonder Boys defeated Lethal Gains. Rob Adonis won a 20-man battle royal, but the ones that really jumped off the page. Xander Warwick and Stevie Ray Frost were in a strap match. Here's my take. Xander Warwick literally had a career-defining performance in the strap match with Stevie Ray Frost. Listen, he came up short. Stevie Ray Frost picked up the win. I understand. Sometimes, even in a loss, somebody shows you what type of man they are, and Xander Warwick does that. Now, some would argue, in their better judgment, his corner threw in the towel. But that young man never quit. And I think that's the key thing we need to keep on. He showed the fight, the will, and the determination he had, even, like I said, even coming up short. Kudos to that young man, for kind of proving he belongs there, at that top level. But obviously one of the big notes coming out of New Legacy was Brett Buffshay defeats Alexander Lev and is your new Legacy Pro Wrestling champion. Alexander Lev has had an absolute chokehold on that title and has been just had it on lock, being the top guy there at New Legacy. With all due respect to Brett Buffshay, this has to be considered an upset because Alexander Lev is a marquee name, not just in New Legacy, but across the state of Georgia. So what a statement by Brett Buffshay to come in there and to literally defeat one of the top guys in the state of Georgia. So I think that says an absolute lot for where Brett Buffshay is right now. So kudos to him. So moving forward, we got to ask the questions like, hey, does Alexander Lev get a rematch? Does somebody else step up to Brett Buffshay and challenge? It's always seems like sometimes when you get the new champion, there's almost more questions than answers. Because now what? Like that's always a big thing. And speaking of now what, what's next for Xander Orrick? After that, like look, I get it. We can talk about all the positives of how that went. But it was a loss, and so we got to see kind of now what's going on. New Legacy Pro, absolutely check them out. Give them a follow on social media. They're picking up a lot of steam now. You can see a lot of the momentum that they have. And if you don't believe me, check them out on YouTube and get ready because their next show is August the 29th. Absolutely, you don't want to miss because all of those questions that we talked about have to be answered. Let's move from Friday to Saturday and jump all the way down to Savannah, Georgia, where Coastal Empire Wrestling put on a spectacular event. We're talking that place was so hot, they literally had to turn people away. Yeah, that's right. They literally, when we talk about the old wrestling saying, sold out hanging from the rafters, that's what happened at Savannah, Georgia, because they literally had to turn carloads of people away because they just sold so many tickets. Simon Sermon and Chad Skywalker had, look, one of the craziest stories in the state of Georgia has been what's on the VHS. Stay tuned as we talk about it because we're eventually going to get to what was on this tape. But Simon and Chad had a match, VHS on a pole, and it ended in a no contest after Randall Reno III entered and he retrieved a tape while the other two were down. More to come on a little bit of that as well. Tommy Mars picked up a huge win on J. Alpha Miller. Tommy Mars making waves everywhere. That young man was on our underrated, underappreciated Young Guns edition, just last month, I believe, and is on absolute fire, and he's looking jacked to the gills and just absolutely making a name for himself. So check out Tommy Mars, man. Kevin Cantrell defeated Christian Taylor. Two people we're massive fans of both. Kevin Cantrell, a more grizzled, just brutal fighter. Christian Taylor, young man that I'm really high on. I think he has a huge future. So cool to see those two kind of going. Dax Anthony pulled up defeated Dax Anthony, easy for me to say, defeated Bryce Cannon in a tables match. I don't know the hatred and just the absolute passion between, as far as the hatred between these two. I'm not really sure what's going to happen to allow this to end, if that makes any sense. I don't know that these two, is this going to be one of those fight forever? It seemed that was already a year in the making, and are these two going to fight for the next, it runs so deep. This is one of those feuds that would not shock me to see years, and I mean years down the road, that they're still kind of fighting. Hakeem Young retained the Coastal Chaos Championship over Cornelius Pepperbottom. He proceeded to then give Pepperbottom a concerto, which looks like it's going to keep Pepperbottom out for a while, for the foreseeable future, as you can probably imagine. So shout out to Pepperbottom. Hopefully he recovers and is back sooner than later. CT Keys defeated Zach Mosley, but I got a feeling this one's not over. But we talked about it. Like, CT Keys is a beast of a monster and does not surprise me in the least that he's making an impact all over. But Zach's not one to quit, specifically there in his backyard at Coastal Empire. So let's get into the kind of the dirt here is, the VHS revealed that Michael Walker has sold his soul to the daddy, Simon Sermon. And all of this led to, believe it or not, I'm not sure what's gotten into Michael Walker here. Is it he just had to have the championship so bad? He did defeat Hollywood Hunter James, and he is the new Coastal Empire heavyweight champion. But just, it's so, look, for example, he's the Flying Fro. Like, that's his trademark. Well, he puts the fro into a ponytail, took a knee, and he kissed the Boss Daddy's ring, and has now clearly basically sold his soul to Simon Sermon. And we, like, why? Maybe it's the next question. Was it for gold? Was it just desperate, being desperation to become the Coastal Empire champion? Time will tell. Hopefully at the next show we'll get some answers. But he absolutely bloodied Hunter James with the ring. So there's just a lot of questions there about why, right? Why? But like we said, that crowd was super, super hot. There are over 200 people there. And it's even still, it's not the only questions left unanswered. We still got more questions of why Fro. But we all just assumed, by the way, let's go back to the other issue with the VHS tape. It ended up being, Fro kind of joining Simon Sermon. But hey, what about Nikki 8? Like, we all just, we thought that Nikki 8's attacker, was going to be revealed on that tape. That's clearly not the case. So that question still lingers out there. So we just kind of throw our hand like, hey, so what's going to happen now? Like with the superstars and Nikki 8, we got to find out who the attacker was, and we'll see. I'm sure, hopefully, as time goes on. Again, definitely a show if you missed it in person. Oh, by the way, or if you drove there to see the show and it was completely sold out. Two things. One, that's why you order your tickets ahead of time. Two, if you did miss it and you want to check it out, it will obviously be on the YouTube channel. And that will set you up so you can pre-buy your tickets for the next show, which is August the 30th, down there in Savannah, Georgia. We're going to have to take a long haul from Savannah, and we're going to drive all the way over to Roanoke, Alabama. Bullpen Pro Wrestling. Probably, you could argue, one of the, if not the hottest, promotions in Georgia just running. Now, granted, they run some of their shows in Alabama as well, but just a lot of stuff going on. And the big news coming out of Roanoke, Dante Diamond wins the Battle Royal, and he will earn a shot at the Southern Heavyweight Champion, Rob Adonis, and a shot at his title. Young man's coming along pretty fast. Rob Adonis, however, is a monster of a dude, and that is not going to be an easy challenge. Lamar Phillips and Chris Gaines defeated the Wonder Boys and retained the tag team championships. And what I thought would arguably be, and clearly has been established as one of the marquee matches on this show, JT Paradox and Zach Buchanan, and two absolute young guns, in pro wrestling right now. JT Paradox picks up a huge win. Look, the kid's had all the momentum. He's capturing gold. But here's the thing. Zach Buchanan across wrestling has looked as a real blue chipper. So for JT Paradox to pick up this win, I think is a tremendous win for JT Paradox's resume, and I think he would probably agree with that. We'll come back to that in a little bit. There's more to discuss there. Of course, Rob Adonis defeated Xavier Cross, another dude who just is becoming an absolute monster. And when we mean monster, he is a huge individual. So two big guys doing big guy stuff. And, of course, friend of the show, Eddie Honcho, is really cool to see him on the card. He picked up a win as well. The other question mark I wanted to get into is Sunset Sam. More and more sightings. Sunset Sam jumps Rob Adonis after he had interfered in the above-mentioned JT Paradox Zach Buchanan match. So those questions again, Sunset Sam. I know people they're pointing and saying it's this and saying it's that person. Let's get proof before we start just randomly accusing people and that kind of stuff. So I want to say Sunset Sam, Bell, in this case, you got to thank him because he at least leveled the playing field to help JT Paradox, so that way he wasn't just Rob Adonis and Zach Buchanan there getting the upper hand. Also, one of the funniest moments you're probably going to see, the referee, Kyle Gunner, attempted to stop Connor Parker from making a 3 count in the main event, but he ended up putting old Parker in the Parker put him in the walls of Jericho for his trouble. So really entertaining stuff. But I think one of the things that I kind of really love to promote and push about Bullpen Pro Wrestling, very much a big fan of just big dudes doing big guy stuff, big gun fights. Hey, look, so much so they have a title called the Bull of the Woods Champion. Check them out. Their videos are right there on Facebook. Their next show, they're taking the weekend off. They usually are running shows, it feels like, every single week. But this week they're going to take off, and their next show will be on August the 7th. Now we're going to come back across the state of Georgia again, all the way to Buckhead. Old Buckhead, as we like to say here in Georgia, at the Gotta Be Rolling Skate Center. Georgia Classic Wrestling back in their house. We were actually at the last show, and we talked about it a lot about how good old-fashioned Southern wrestling, and that's what you're going to get at Georgia Classic Wrestling. Jay Too Strong defeated AJ Black. Big win for Jay Too Strong. Sam Hansen, he defeated Jay Shaw. Had a little help from Jay Too Strong, but hey, win's a win. That's what the record book shows, so it kind of is what it is. Dead Man's Hand versus the Enterprise. Dead Man's Hand picks up the win. However, post-match, it got into an all-out brawl, which led to an announcement being set for August the 30th at their next show. Those two teams will go into a dog collar match. So that one will be absolutely out of control. Again, we like to tell you, folks, that is Southern wrestling at its core. Jacob Ashworth, he pinned Scott Mason in 30 seconds to become the number one contender to the Georgia heavyweight title, which we'll discuss that there was a match for that one later in the show. However, Alexander Lev comes out, they kind of get involved, and they ended up in a triple threat with Scott Mason defeating Alexander Lev and Jacob Ashworth to win the Georgia Heritage title. Okay, I'm going to again repeat myself. Scott Mason loses in 30 seconds in order for Jacob Ashworth to earn a title shot for the Georgia heavyweight title, but ends up in a triple threat when Alexander Lev comes out and kind of interjects himself into the situation, turns into a triple threat, and Scott Mason's your new Georgia Heritage champion. Crazy, and as wild as that sounds, that is true. Who will Jacob Ashworth face? Even though he lost his Heritage title, still the number one contender for the Georgia heavyweight title. That match was that later on that title was defended when Nick Halen defended that title against Shawn Nelson, the man he beat at the last show. And Nick Halen is still your reigning, defending Georgia heavyweight champion, as he picked up a big win over Shawn Nelson, and he will move on to clearly face Jacob Ashworth. So at the August 30th show, we look like we're getting Nick Halen and Jacob Ashworth for the Georgia heavyweight champion. You're going to have a dog collar match with the Enterprise and Dead Man's Hand. So again, check them out on YouTube and see all the stuff that you missed if you did. But stop missing the show. Go out and check them out August 30th at the Gotta Be Rolling Center. And also follow them on social media, because they also announced another show that they're going to be running in Milledgeville. I believe don't quote me on the date, so I'm not going to I think it's September 5th. But check them out on social media to make sure you don't miss a thing on Georgia Classic Wrestling. Alpharetta over at the Wild Wing DWA, Dynamic Wrestling Association, had a big show there. I can't think of, I'm a big Wild Wing Cafe guy. I am. There's one right by our house. We absolutely love it. We have been since the days of long ago when we all, a group of my friends, we used to go to the one in Swanee. So check out the one in Alpharetta, because they're putting on shows here with DWA. It's a partnership that seems to be working for all parties involved. Neji defended the DWA title, retained her champion. Gemma Jules versus Tsunami. Tsunami picked up a win, and she advanced to the women's Final Four for the championship for the DWA Women's Championship. Krule defeated Grayson Pierce, and he is still your multiversal champion. I cannot wait to see footage of this. I have heard crazy things about the ending of this match, and absolutely, without question, cannot wait to see it. So I have to see the footage of this finish. Herculean Rage defeated Amari, the Maestro, and Red Smash, and retains the Chasen Championship. The Northside Heroes in what I was told was an outstanding tag match. Two of the hottest tag teams in the state of Georgia, Top Team and Northside Heroes. Northside Heroes defeat Top Team and are your new DWA Tag Team Champions. And that doesn't surprise me. They're a super hot team. But top team, man, I could argue when you're talking about underrated teams and underrated wrestling in Georgia, top team might be the guy. And I know everybody's like, Nick, they're not underrated. They may be. Even with the pub and the everything everybody talks about them, they may be. They arguably may be still. Again, make sure you're checking out DWA. They are on IWTV for all their shows, and they've got another show coming up pretty quickly around the corner at August 15th. But I believe that one is at their Atlanta location on Krog Street. Again, so check out DWA. Nerd U up in Cornelia, Georgia. They're running in the same building OSWA runs, and lots of crazy stuff going on up there. Cliffhanger Chris defeated Chris Del Rey. Luca Daniels defeated Luke Mills. Matt Mercer defeated Jaden Vane. Jamie Holmes defeated Hayden Seals. Dennis Glass defeated the Silver Fox. JD Inc. picked up a huge win over Trevor Blackwell. These are two guys that have been fighting a lot. This is another one. I love when I see feuds not only lasting and running a long time, but also crossing promotions and working. And by the way, both of these young men I'm super high on and think they have a potential future there. The big news coming out, of course, was Solar was supposed to take on Sid in a ladder match for the Nerd U Championship. However, as I talked about earlier, Sid was in an absolute brutal coffin match the night before and was physically unable to make the drive up to Cornelia and appear at this show. So Matthew Mercer took his place. Jamie Holmes got interfered. Chris Del Rey kind of helped make the save and kind of help a little bit. But Solar and Mercer both end up injured it was wild and chaotic finish. Absolutely. So you got to check out the footage when this comes down. The secret, how can I say that? The interesting part is we had kind of all forgotten in a weird thing that Crystal Rose was a special enforcer into this match. Special referee, enforcer. However, when Mercer and Solar are down, this is the part a lot of people forgot. She calls out Matt Westlake. He comes out. She takes her ref shirt off, and she cashed in her Lord of the Ring ring that she had. And she climbed the ladder, and she is now repeat, folks, listen clear. Crystal Rose is your Nerd U champion. So absolutely the question marks just abound. Crystal Rose defeats Michael Solar and Matthew Mercer to be the new Nerd U champion. It's a surprising twist. It's kind of one of those things sometimes when you forget little things. Like, oh, I forgot she had the ring and it didn't seem like it because she was the ref. Very smart play on her to capture that championship, and kind of curious to see how do they move forward. And to all of the young men who think like, oh, well, there's a woman as the champion, it's going to be one of the absolute toughest women you're ever going to meet. So this is not going to be, by any stretch, easy road for anybody to capture a title. Matter of fact, some could argue it might be a tougher road now that Crystal Rose is your champion. Kind of a side note, Matthew Mercer left his boots in the middle of the ring, so we're curious to see what that means down the road. And again, check it all out over on the YouTube channel. They will be back, as they run bi-monthly, they will be back on September the 13th. Now on an interesting twist, so let's move to Sunday. One of the most unique shows that you're going to find in the Atlanta area runs literally downtown at Monk's Meadery. That is the Blood and Honey series that is put on by Nathan Mowry and his team. Absolute, look, if deathmatch is your thing, 120%, this is where you want to be. Luke Hateful defeated Jazzy Yang. The Hardcore Hillbilly defeated Brian White. And yes, I'm going to read what I'm going to read, folks. Mr. Anti-Deathmatch himself, Matt Griffin, is now undefeated in death matches, and one by one is just kind of knocking off the Blood and Honey roster. As he picked up a win over Peyton Blair, proved he's not above. Hey, look, if you step into the ring, it's a fight, and Matt Griffin shows he has no qualms with anyway. Matt Griffin, as we all have clearly established across the state of Georgia, kind of lives by his own rules and will do anything to assert his position across the state of Georgia. Little Sicko defeated Lizzie Blair and Satu Jin, and of course, and Nathan Mowry picked up a win over Spectre. This thing has been going on. Has it been a year now? I feel like we're at a year, probably over a year at this point. And these two go out and put on a 20-plus minute death match. And, I mean, it had everything from weed whackers, saw traps, just stuff on fire. I mean, it literally was everything. It's just... It was the bloody, brutal mess that you come to enjoy if you're a deathmatch fan. So it's very, very, like, if this, I always tell people, if you're a deathmatch fan, you're a deathmatch wrestler, you're a deathmatch, whatever, and you're saying, hey, there's not enough shows, these are the shows you need to go out and support. For the simple reason, there's only 3 of these. Like, they were going to run 3 shows. So next month's the second one. So they give a taste of that ultra-violent, side of wrestling that those fans are, that you're into. So it's 100% why I feel like, hey, if you can't sit there and go, we don't get enough of these, and then when they give them to you, you don't go support them. That's just my take on it. Look, they do a really good job, by the way. I get it. It's on a Sunday, but they start at 8. They start on time. They end on time, and their crowds are just growing and growing and growing. I think they guessed there was about 175 people there to watch this show, which is just absolutely insane for a deathmatch show in Atlanta. Kudos to Nathan Mowry and that team. I can't put it over enough. And you look, if you wanted a little taste of what it's like, check them out on YouTube. Again, their next show's August 17th. So I encourage you a lot. I mean, I strongly encourage you, if you're a deathmatch fan or you just want to see some violence in wrestling, check out the Blood and Honey series there at Monk's Meadery in Atlanta. And again, next show is on August the 17th. Well, man, that was kind of the recap, all the shows of everybody who got their information on In on Time. And, of course, that leads us to one of our favorite segments of the week, Who Won the Week in Georgia Indie Wrestling. Listen, with all due respect to anybody and everybody, I think this was probably one of the easiest ones we've ever given out. That's just my opinion. Take that for what it is. You have to give it to One Fall this week. Running center stage, for their summer stage event, home run across the board, everything and everything. All your matches delivered. All of the fans, knew all of the stories. They drew a great, I think they, look, and I'm not speaking for them. I think they probably did even better than they thought or hoped. Hope's probably, you're probably thinking you'd hope for a sellout. For 700, whatever the place will hold. But for them to go in there and draw the house they did, without question, I think they have to be thrilled. I can't imagine that pulling this off, there has to be more. We kind of questioned that, like, hey, is this an annual thing? I don't think without question, this thing has to be an annual event at this point. Because, look, they did such a great job of the shows. Again, I mentioned it earlier, how they ran all these shows around Atlanta, and they drew those fans into Atlanta. So they pulled from this market. They pulled from this market. from the outskirts around Atlanta, and they pulled in this amazing house because they weren't just drawing one base of fans. They were pulling from all over. Now, look, by the way, they deliver the Frat House, QT Marshall, Billy Gunn, in Austin, Brody King, Darby Allin, MJF, Tony Schiavone, Harley Cameron, the Cats in the House, Ernest Miller, Glaciers in the House. I mean, dude, I could go on and on. Yeah. But here's the thing. A lot of those people, like, somebody was like, well, they had Darby. None of those guys none of them were announced ahead of time. Darby was a surprise. Brody King was a surprise. You were getting a VIP meet and greet with MJF, but you didn't think he didn't wrestle. Like, we didn't even know he was going to get a segment. You probably assumed, which, you were right, but he came out and did a segment. I mean, that's, let's be blunt. The show, and those kids drew a really, really good house. It was a big event. It was a fun event, and one of the most historic venues, for wrestling in the state of Georgia. So guess what, folks? That's who, absolutely, without question, won the week. So let's kind of kick it up a notch, man. And when I mean kick it up, let's punch the gas, man, and let's get into the car and let's make the drives and look at all of the shows coming up this upcoming weekend. And folks, I hate to tell you, but it's kind of a light weekend. I'm not saying it's not going to be a good weekend, but it is a little bit of a light weekend because I think a lot of people's schools kind of starting back in our area the following couple days. And of course, let's be blunt, SummerSlam's running this weekend. So a lot of promotions, a 2-night SummerSlam WWE event. A lot of people just kind of shy away from that and don't run, which kind of makes sense. And hey, if you want to hear us discuss SummerSlam, Myron and I will kind of go through that. I don't know if we'll go match by match, but close to it, if not probably, over on the Tapped Out show this week that drops on Thursday. Hey, remember, Wednesday for Patreon members if you're at the $5 level or higher. But yeah, absolutely. Friday, however, I will, since SummerSlam is Saturday and Sunday, folks. So Friday night, I will be hitting the road, and I will be heading up to Watkinsville, most likely, for the One Fall Wrestling show there at the South Main Brewery. Bell time is at 7 p.m. Questions are, what's the fallout now from SummerStage? It's Showdown at the South 2, right there at the, like I said, South Main Brewery. It's kind of a whole new era that, it's kind of coincidentally, it starts there in Watkinsville. It's one of their hottest venues. I strongly encourage to get your tickets ahead of time. The last couple times I've been to that venue, they've run out of chairs. So absolutely, I can't tell you you got to get your tickets ahead of time. That's just my opinion. Unless you want to stand all the show, I do, but that's me. But I kind of tell you the tickets go fast and that place gets packed to the gills. But we are going to see the first title defenses from the 3 champions that we talked about. Brady Booker, your new One Fall champion. Isis Reed, the problem child. She will be defending the women's championship. And, of course, the Mexican rock star, Varia Morales, very good friend of the show. We absolutely are massive fans of him. I'm eager to see him defend the One Fall Wrestling Breakout Championship. But the question it literally sets up, though, is who's going to make that challenge? Who's going to step up to those guys? We've got some guesses. But with One Fall, the question, though, is you never know who's going to show up. So who's going to challenge those people? You think it's an easy answer, but it is not. So, again, make the drive up there to Watkinsville this Friday. Bell time is at 7. Apocalypse Pro Wrestling Squared Circle Action. That's their big show this Friday in Royston, Georgia. Their bell time is 8 o'clock. The Asylum match. Look, everything points to their, that's it, man. It's the Asylum match. Team SCA versus Team Apocalypse. Winner gets control of APW, SCA. The whole kind of like 2 names, that's going to kind of determine the future of name that I guess I have to call this promotion. I can't call it the artist formerly known as. If APW or Apocalypse wins this time, I firmly believe, without question, it's APW for life. But I think John and Feltner's assembled a team that he hopes can get back Squared Circle Action. The tag team titles will be on the line. Dexter and Chop Top, Greatness Inc. will be taking on Boulevard and Chris Ballenger. For the tag team championships, there will be a battle royal as well, with the winner facing TJ Trigger for the Friday Night Championship. And Hunter James is returning to APW/SCA. So curious to see what kind of his future holds there. They love him there at APW/SCA, so it'll be easy to see. But of course, like I said, the big match of the night obviously is the Asylum cage match. So again, get up there early to get a good seat, because you want to be as close to the action as you can in the cage match. Saturday night, I believe this is where we're heading. I always try to keep you guys in the loop of where we're driving. I believe Saturday we're going to Monroe. Southern Fried Championship Wrestling is back at the Boys and Girls Club there. Bell time is 7 p.m. Sauronaro will be defending the Southern Fried Heavyweight Championship against Nick Halen, which quite arguably I would tell you that I would put up against most anything you're probably going to see on SummerSlam, as the two of the best wrestlers in the state of Georgia get in there and go at it. And that one we always talk about, like, hey, give me a match to make me get up and come to your show. I could completely choose to sit home, watch SummerSlam, and not go to a show. But a Sauronaro versus Nick Halen match for the Southern Fried Championship, okay, you've piqued my interest. You'll get me up and I'll come to the show. The great thing about Peacock, folks, you can watch SummerSlam later. You could watch SummerSlam Saturday night's version. You can watch the night one Sunday morning, roll right into night two on Peacock as well. CT Keys and Judas, okay, you really have my interest piqued. You've got me. When you get those two kind of matches like that, again, I always tell people, look, I love the national stuff. I love the WWE product. But it's so much more fun to go to a local indie show, see the action, get up close and personal. You're going to get a way better seat than anything. Trust me. I just dropped a bunch of money because my wife and I are going to go to Chicago to see the John Cena tour, and that was the best bet to pull it off. And the amount of money we had to spend to go sit in okay seats, they're good. They're not great. It's just astronomically stupid compared to you can go pay $20, $15, $15, $20 and go see a show where the action's just going to be right there, really good. So Southern Fried Championship Wrestling. You're also going to have Adrian Hawkins taking on Disturbed. Also going to appear Jacob Ashworth, The Crusade, Mad Street, Chip Day, Seth DeLay, the Wonder Boys, on and on and on. That locker room is just top notch there at Southern Fried. So head on out to Monroe. Southern Fried Championship Wrestling, again, bell time is at 7 p.m. Over in Buchanan, Georgia, Premier All-Star, man, they're bouncing back super quick with another show. And it's going to be just another hot show. They are on fire right now. It looks like they have turned that knob up a notch a little bit, and the action and the heat, just everything across the board seems to be picking up steam. And a little example of that is there's going to be a West Georgia street fight as AJ Black and the West Georgia champion Alexander Lev take on Scott Mason and Stevie Ray Frost. That will be an absolute brawl, as you can probably imagine, as we've talked about all of these gentlemen in the past and about their just the willingness and levels of brutality they'll all four go to. I kind of got a vibe this one should be a standout match for sure. There will be a tag team championship match as Xander Seabolt and Austin Thorne will defend against Sean Nelson and Frankie Valentine. Great one, another one right there. Simon Sermon showing up at Premier All-Star as he'll be taking on Lamar Phillips. That should be interesting. Simon Sermon, especially if you're not familiar, he is absolutely without question one of the best performers in the state of Georgia, in my opinion. And definitely somebody, if you have not seen, you need to put on your bingo card to go check out. So you can check him out in Buchanan, Georgia, there at Premier All-Star this weekend. Sunday, August the 3rd, RIPW. That is right. Renegade Independent Pro Wrestling returns to Atlanta, Georgia. The Dark Passion Assassins will take on the Fade Area Militia for the Tag Team Championships. Tyson Maddox versus Herculean Rage versus Jacob Johnson for the SOSM Championship. Alexandra Quinn will take on the Queen of RIPW, Rose Gold, J. Alpha Miller, Keelan Cole, Noah Vale, Spectre, and Soraya Saber, all also appearing on this show. And that is huge. So they are, again, a Sunday show. So make sure you give Renegade Independent Pro Wrestling a follow. Check out, so when you're catching all their shows, because they run on Sundays, and sometimes we forget that kind of stuff, and we don't want to do that. That's all of the shows that I have that we got the information for. Remember, promotions, get your information in to me by Monday at 5 p.m. That is the deadline to get your covered under the Indy Rewind, and just to make sure that I've got your posters, your matches, or whatever you want covered on the Making the Drive segment. I do my best to go out there, but it is just, look, I put a social media post out about, look, right now there's roughly 40 promotions that we're trying to cover. It is almost impossible. I can't spend hours upon hours looking for your information. It should be relatively easy, and I really want to send a shout out to all those promotions that do such a good job of making that stuff super accessible and making it easy to find. It's a great benefit to all, I hope. And again, 5 p.m. Monday, that is the deadline to have your recaps in. Also, any of the information. And again, appreciate the promotions that go out of their way to make sure that we have everything and anything we need. But before we get out of here, guys, we still want to remind you, look, we accept questions to the Tapped In Show, to the Tapped Out Show at tappedoutpod@gmail.com. That's just the easiest way to get your questions to us. It makes it easier for me to sift through them versus trying to hunt through 3 or 4 different types of social media and drag those questions. And but the best way to do anything to make sure your information is, if you're a member at patreon.com/tappedoutpod and you're taking advantage of all of those benefits, we always tell you, you can message us on there as well. And if your question, look, again, reasonable questions, we guarantee you we will get your question on the show. We will make sure that it is on that place, and you will get your question through as a Patreon member, patreon.com/tappedoutpod. Well, hopefully, guys, that is a lot. Look, I get it. There's a lot of shows that we covered. Not as many shows. Like I said, it is a little bit of a light weekend as we head into the weekend. But still, go out if you're possible. Like, I still look across these shows, and pretty much across the state of Georgia, there's something that's relatively close for you to go check out. Please do that. Go check out a show, buy a ticket, and just maybe we'll see you at the matches.